Gospel for this Sunday, according to Mark chapter 5, verses 21 to 43. It's about the two connected miracles. Jesus brings back to life the daughter of Jairus and the healing of a woman from a severe bleeding problem who touched Jesus' cloak. His gospel is also documented in Matthew 9, 18-26, and in Luke 8, 40 to 56. The gospel today from Mark narrates two miracles, two signs that are both centered in the importance of having faith in Jesus. It reminds us about the gospel from last Sunday when the Lord, after calming the storm, reprimanded his disciples for their lack of faith. It's sort of unusual, kind of unusual, that the Gospels from Mark starts today with the first miracle about the daughter of Jairus. But all of a sudden, the narration is interrupted by the narration of the second miracle about the woman who touched Jesus' cloak. Immediately after that, Mark goes back to finish the narration of the first miracle. And Matthew and Luke use exactly the same outline. Some scholars call this a sandwich type narration, but let's call it the two miracles, interconnected miracles. Here is the gospel for today: Jairus' daughter and the woman who touched Jesus' cloak. The introduction of the first miracle is about the daughter of Jairus. Jesus went back across the other side of the lake. There at the lakeside, a large crowd gathered around him. Jairus, an official of the local synagogue, arrived, and when he saw Jesus, he threw himself down at his feet and begged him earnestly, "My little daughter is very sick. Please come and place your hands on her so that she will get well and live." You can see Jairus' faith in Jesus interceding for his daughter here. And of course, Jesus started off with him. So many people were going along with Jesus that they were crowding him from every side. Please don't forget this. There's a lot of people, a multitude of people crowding Jesus on every side, in front, on the sides, on the back. And here is Jesus and Jairus. Then the narration of the first miracle is suddenly interrupted by the narration of the second miracle about the woman who touched Jesus' cloak. And here it is. There was a woman who had suffered terribly from severe bleeding for 12 years. Remember, 12 years. Even though she had been treated by many doctors, she had spent all her money, but instead of getting better, she got worse all the time. She had heard about Jesus, so she came in the crowd behind him, saying to herself, "If I just touch his cloth, I will get well." She touched his cloak, and her bleeding stopped at once, and she had the feeling inside herself that she was healed of her trouble. And once Jesus knew that power had come out of him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my cloth?" The disciples answered, "You see how the people are crowding you. Why do you ask who touched you?" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. The woman realized what had happened to her, so she came trembling with fear, knelt at his feet, and told him the whole truth. Jesus said to her, "My daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your trouble." In order to understand this first miracle, this first sign, it may be useful to read Leviticus 15, verses 19 and 25. When a woman has her monthly period, she remains unclean for 7 days. Anyone who touches her is also unclean until evening. If a woman has a flow of blood for several days outside her monthly period, or if her flow continues beyond her regular period, she remains unclean as long as the flow continues, just as she is during her monthly period. It was kind of a hard piece of the law. And here you see a beautiful painting of the woman trying to reach Jesus' cloak with an incredible faith. If I touch his clothes, I'm going to be healed. And she did, and she was healed. Deconstructing the first miracle to find the central character, the facts, items, and activities, a woman gets healed just by touching Jesus' cloak. Jesus noticed that that power had gone out of him. It had never happened before. The woman was thinking that if she just touched Jesus' clothes, she would be healed. She did, and her bleeding stopped. When Jesus noticed that power had gone out of him, he asked who had touched his clothes. The disciple must have looked at him as if he was asking some kind of a nonsense question. Can you imagine what were they thinking? What is he asking? Is he going crazy? Everybody was touching him. Jesus knew that there was something special about this and kept looking. When the woman told him that it was her, he called her his daughter and said that her faith has made her well and to go in peace and heal. After the second miracle, Mark goes back to complete the narration of the first miracle. While Jesus was saying this, some messengers came from Jairus' home and told him, "Your daughter has died. Why bother the teacher any longer?" Pretty bad news for Jairus. But Jesus paid no attention to what they said, but told Jairus, "Don't be afraid, only believe." And he did not let anyone else go on with him except Peter and James and his brother John, three disciples. They arrived at Jairus' house, where Jesus saw the confusion and heard all the loud crying and wailing. He went in and said, "Why all this confusion? Why are you crying? The child is not dead. She is only sleeping." They started making fun of him. So he put them all out, took the child's father and mother and his three disciples and went into the room where the child was lying. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talita cum," which Marx translate as meaning, "Little girl, I tell you to get up." Talita cum is Aramaic. She got up at once and started walking around. She was 12 years old. Remember, 12 years old. When this happened, they were all completely amazed. But Jesus gave them strict order not to tell anyone. There were 5 people in there. Don't tell anything to anybody. And he turned around and he said, give her something to eat. And here you have another beautiful picture of Jesus asking the 12-year-old girl to get up and live again. You have the mother and the father over there, and you have one of the disciples peeking through the door, one of the three disciples. He constructed the second miracle. In the second miracle, Jesus brings back to life the daughter of Jairus. This miracle is very significant. It's about one of the only three persons that Jesus brought back to life according to the Gospels. The widow's son in Naim, in Luke 7, 11, 17. Jairus' daughter, the one that we're studying right now, in Mark 5, 22, 23, and 35 to 43, in Matthew 9, 18, 26, and also in Luke 8, 40, 56. And of course, Lazarus, this miracle is only in John 11, 38, 44. What does the Catechism say about the raising from the dead of Jairus' daughter? Paragraph 646. Christ's resurrection was not a return to earthly life, as was the case with the raisings from the dead that he had performed before Easter, Jesus, Jairus' daughter, the young man of Naim, and Lazarus. These actions were miraculous events, but the person's miraculous raise returned by Jesus' power to ordinary air life. At some particular moment, they would die again. Christ's resurrection is essentially different. In his risen body, he passes from the state of death to another life beyond time and space. At Jesus' resurrection, his body is filled with the power of the Holy Spirit. He shares the divine life in his glorious state, so that St. Paul can say that Christ is the man of heaven. So there's a big difference between a resurrection and being raised from the dead for the three persons that Jesus raised from death in the Gospels. In this first miracle, the Lord is teaching us, and we should be able to identify and understand at least three important teachings. Teaching number one, the healing of the woman started in her mind with a strong and unambiguous faith in Jesus. Her faith was so remarkable that she had no doubts that she will be healed just by touching the cloth of Jesus. Jesus' cloth had no healing power. It was Jesus' divine nature responding, moved by her strong and unambiguous faith. Jesus is revealing to us that the real power of a strong and unambiguous faith. It's a big teaching for us. Pope Benedict XVI, now Pope Emeritus, is still alive. He wrote a book, The Transformation Power of Faith, by Ignatius Press. The transforming power of faith. And just by the title, you can say faith has an enormous transforming power. Issue number two. Apparently, Jesus was caught off guard. He wasn't expecting it. The miracle happened not without his knowledge. He immediately felt the power had gone out of him, but without him directly ordering it. Wow. Is faith that powerful with our Lord? It looks like The healing power can come out of Jesus moved by a strong faith in him. What we do know is that faith in Jesus is essential for a miracle to happen. Jesus himself said in Mark 12, verse 24, when you pray and ask for something, believe that you have received it and you will be given whatever you ask for. That's the key here. Jesus is motivated by our faith in him. Remember, we don't live in our realm of feelings and emotions. We live in God's reality called faith. It's not feelings or emotions, it's faith. This is number 3. It's evident that the woman was not only considered ritually unclean, you can read this in Leviticus 18, verse 19, but also embarrassed by her situation and didn't want people to know about it. Jesus very lovingly avoided embarrassing her while approving her healing from the problems she had. Jesus will never humiliate us. The woman approached him and told the truth. Yes, Lord, I did. I'm sorry. Whatever. It's not recorded, but she approached him and told him what happened. And Jesus talked to her and told her that her faith has saved her to go in peace. And her problems were gone. She was healed. Some key concepts that you may find useful to remember from the first miracle. We need to have the plain, pure, and wholesome faith that this woman had in Jesus if we want a miracle to happen. It's not kind of, yes, I believe, but oh no, plain, pure, and wholesome faith. Strong, unequivocal faith in Jesus is powerful enough to motivate Jesus to grant us a miracle. Avoid embarrassing anybody that needs his help. Jesus did. He avoided embarrassing her. Jesus was touched by the so regarded as an unclean woman. He was touched. She touched him. They touched his clothes. But he was not concerned about that. He wasn't. In the second miracle, the Lord is teaching us, and we should be able to identify at least 4 important teachings. Teaching number 1. This miracle is a prophetic revelation that establishes that Jesus has the authority and the power that will be put to good use at the end of time when he will bring everybody back to life. Jesus proved that these 2 miracles, these 2 signs, that he has the authority and power not only over disease, but also over life and death. You can read here Jesus' power over disease and death from Luke 7, verses 1 to 17. And in John 11:25, Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. This is a very important teaching. Teaching number 2. It looks like for a miracle to happen, Jesus wants us to believe, to have faith in him, and not to be afraid. So it's believe, have faith in me, and not be afraid. This is what the Lord told to Jairus. Don't be afraid, only believe. Then Jesus told the 12 years old little girl, Talita Kum, which means, little girl, I tell you to get up, and she got up. And here's another picture of the miracle. of the 12-year-old little girl. Remember, the woman with the bleeding problem had that problem for 12 years. The little girl that died and Jesus brought back to life was told 12 years old, was 12 years old only. So she was probably born in the same year that the one with the bleeding problem started. Two women coexisting in 12 years in history. If you don't run when you feel fear, fear will run because it has seen faith. Remember from last Sunday, fear and faith cannot coexist. Teaching number 3, Jesus performed this miracle in front of only Peter, James, John, Jairus, and his wife. Jesus gave orders to all of them not to tell anyone. For some reason, only known to him then, that precise moment in history, he wasn't ready to reveal his glory yet. There were some miracles that Jesus wanted to perform in private. Remember the first miracle that he performed at the wedding of Cana? Is the miracle where his disciples believed in him. It was just for them. The rest of the people, there were a bunch of people in that wedding. It was a feast, a wedding. They didn't know about the miracle. They only knew about the very good tasting wine. But that's it. There is another reading that may help us understand this second miracle. A contact with a corpse, with a dead body. In Numbers 19, verses 11 to 13, those who touch a corpse are ritually unclean for 7 days. Unclean. They must purify themselves with the water for purification on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and then they will be clean. But if you do not purify, they do not purify themselves, or both on both the 3rd and the 7th day, they will not be clean. Those who touch a corpse and do not purify themselves remain unclean, because the water for purification has not been thrown over them. They defile the Lord's tent, and they will no longer be considered God's people. Wow. You touch a dead body, a corpse, and you don't go through the purification process, you will no longer be considered God's people. That's pretty hard. Teaching number 4, Jesus can touch anybody, anytime, to bring them back to him. He will go anytime after a lost sheep and carry it back with him. He was not affected by this prohibition, by this mandate. He's the Son of God. He can touch anybody anytime he wants, he needs, he's asked for. Some key concepts that you may find useful to remember from this second miracle. Jesus proved that he has the authority and power to bring anybody back to life. This miracle is paramount if you want to understand that he will bring everybody back to life at the end of times. Jesus touched the dead girl to bring her back to life and was not unclean. Of course not. He's the Son of God. He was not unclean for doing so. He can touch anybody to bring them back to him, man. Anytime, anywhere. Faith in Jesus is essential for a miracle to happen. There is no need to be afraid. Jesus said that we need to have faith and believe in him and not to be afraid. There is no need anymore to keep as a secret what Jesus has done for us. He already revealed his glory. So, did Jesus do something special for you? Don't be afraid to tell anybody, to everybody. Don't worry about it. Just he already revealed his glory. Reference, as usual, were taken from the Good News Translation and from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And this Sunday, in addition to the usual concepts, I share with you some excerpts from my book that may be useful to understand these miracles. In the book Understanding Jesus' Miracles and Parables, Part 2, the woman who touched Jesus' cloak and the healing of Jairus' daughter. So let me ask you some review questions. Why a strong, unequivocal faith in Jesus is crucial if you want a miracle to happen? What did Jesus prove with the first miracle? What will disappear if you have a strong faith? What is the common theme of these two miracles? Why did Jesus touch the dead girl to bring her back to life when he knew that he would be considered unclean by the law? What did Jesus prove with this second miracle? Why was Jesus not worried because an unclean woman touched him? This is Alejandro Burgos from El Paso, Texas. And this was the gospel for this Sunday. If you can, please subscribe to this channel. See you next Sunday. And please don't forget,